Rick Ray joins us here on the new Sentinel Sports Page. Coach Ray, Vince Ferrara, and John Adams here in Knoxville. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, we appreciate you doing it, and certainly we'll get to this Tennessee game in a little bit. But talk about Alabama. You guys had that game. You're playing so well in the first half, and then Alabama went on that run. Kind of when you looked at the tape or just being there on the sideline, what'd you see that allowed that game to sort of get away from you?
Well, I think two things. Like, one is they came out and they hit 3 consecutive threes to start the second half. And to be quite frank, our guys lost their competitive spirit and put their head down and didn't compete like we've been competing in the past. I thought, we've lost some ball games before, and I thought we've been defeated by some, large margins, but I never questioned whether my team played hard or competed. I just thought we kind of shut it down and got defeated right then and there. And then the other thing, we just simply didn't handle their run and jump at all in the second half. I thought in the first half we had somewhat of success with that, but I thought in the second half their run and jump really bothered us, and we never got into the flow on the defensive end because the turnovers are kind of just being discombobulated because of that.
Rick, you sound like Conzo talking about competing and in effort. Those are familiar themes with him. I know you have a relationship with him. Could you just tell our listeners a little bit about that and how you have that connection with Conzo?
Yeah, me and Conzo knew each other. When you're in the Midwest, I always say, whatever region you're in, when you're recruiting, you're out on the road and things like that, it's always like who's recruiting, who's there. It's like the movie The Usual Suspects. You always see the same people. So I would see Conzo out recruiting, and then obviously I was fortunate enough to get hired over at Purdue, and Conzo was already on staff there with Matt Painter, and we worked together for a couple of years. And, my relationship with Conzo, first and foremost starts off the court. He just has an unbelievable balance to his life, and he really taught me something about just being not totally vested into just the job. We all work hard. We all know we got to put in insane hours in this business to be a coach, but Conzo has a common sense to have balance in his life that he's still going to go back and spend time with his family and his wife and kids and keep everything in perspective. You're talking about a guy who made it out of East St. Louis, which is just not easy to do. And then you're talking about a guy who was a cancer survivor. So, what he does, next is almost like secondary because he's always survived those two things. So, beyond basketball, Conzo has just been dear to me because of the fact that he taught me how to have a balance to my life.
Rick, I think it's interesting that you put cancer and coming out of East St. Louis. You mentioned him in the same sentence. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about just bucking the odds.
Mm-hmm.
Conzo has bucked the odds, and not even on top of all the knee injuries that he incurred, and played basketball with. You're talking about a guy who didn't even have a chance to practice most of the time because he basically has no cartilage in his knee. He's talking about bone on bone, and we didn't have the medical advancements that we have now with knee injuries. So you're talking about a guy who played most of his college basketball career just in pain, bone on bone. So he's just like his teams are, he's a tough guy.
You mentioned toughness and like his teams are. Are there similarities, do you think, in your team, and not necessarily from personnel standpoint, but in your style and approach to the game? Can people see similarities, what you do compared and contrasted with what Conzo does?
Yeah, I think so. I think first and foremost, you're foolish if you don't take some of the things that we had success with at Purdue. Matt Painter is a really good coach, 3-time Big Ten Coach of the Year. And, from when I was there, all we've ever done is been to the NCAA tournament, win Big Ten championships, and advance to 2 Sweet 16s. So if you don't take some of those same philosophies that you learned at Purdue with you to your next job, you're not just being a smart coach. And so, you're going to see some similarities between our teams just because of that fact.
Visiting with Rick Ray, who's the head coach of the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Mississippi State at Tennessee tomorrow at Thompson-Boling Arena. You can hear the game here on the Sports Animal coverage in the Knoxville News Sentinel. Coach, you mentioned the knee injuries, the toughness. You have a young man from Knoxville and Jalen Steele that's been through an awful lot from an injury standpoint and has continued to get after it and play well for you. For our listeners here, talk about Jalen Steele.
Well, Jalen is a kid that I inherited, and I really didn't know anything about Jalen Steele until I got involved with this job and ultimately got the job. But first and foremost, Jalen is a businessman. He comes in to practice or comes into individual workouts or conditioning. He's there to work. He puts his hard hat on and he does what he's supposed to do, and he does it with great pace, and he really, his approach to work is really good. And so it's an example for our rest of our guys about how you approach the game of basketball, how do you approach your conditioning, how you approach being in the weight room. So he's been really good and refreshing from that standpoint. And then you're talking about the injuries that he's already battled. He had the ACL, and unfortunately he missed several games this season already with the wrist injury. But just doing everything that he's supposed to do as far as getting back. If he needs to do rehab 3 times a day, he's in a rehab room 3 times a day doing what he's necessary to do in order for him to get back on the court. So, and then on the court, he's just by far our best shooter. He's just a guy who's a prolific shooter, and that not just only helps him because he can make shots, but it helps the rest of our team because now it opens up some driving lanes for guys like Craig Sword and Raquez Johnson, and some more posting opportunities for Gavin Ware.
Rick, how does this team this season compare to what you thought it would be when you took this job?
Nothing like it.
Really?
I've never experienced anything like this in my life, let alone even heard of anything like this. With all the season-ending knee injuries that occurred on this team, we've had 3 of them so far, and we already started with a shortened roster because we had some attrition when I first took the job here. So just having those 3 season-ending knee injuries, and then obviously missing Jalen Steele for several games, we went out to Maui and played 3 straight basketball games against the best talent in the nation with 6 scholarship guys, and 1 walk-on. And so the task has been daunting. At one point in time, we were playing games. We had 1 point of experience coming back, 1 point, and we had 70 minutes of experience coming back. So there may be a team in the nation that might be younger than us, but there's definitely no team in the nation that's less experienced. But to our guys' credit, they haven't been defiant at all. They've always done what I've asked them to do. They continue to progress and get better. They bought into what we're trying to do here, and that's not always the easiest thing to get done. So I think we got good kids. I think that I see we continue to get better, and I'm happy about that.
So, Rick, when you took the job and you said worst possible scenario that could happen, you never thought an epidemic of knee injuries in.
Yeah. The worst thing that could happen is the fact that you're just not reaching the kids. The knee injuries and the injuries that we suffered, haven't been the best thing. But I really like the way our guys are continually buying in. I think the worst situation as far as being a head coach or taking over a new program is everybody in the program bucks your system and doesn't want to buy in and do the things that you want to do as a coach. And to our guys' credit, like I said, they haven't done that. I think that would be the worst case scenario, is that you have all these injuries and then you're playing with guys that really don't want you to coach them and you don't want to coach them. And that hasn't been the case.
Joined by Mississippi State men's basketball coach Rick Ray in his first year in Starkville. Mississippi State at Tennessee, 4 o'clock at Thompson-Boling Arena tomorrow. Vince Ferrara and John Adams. Coach, when you've studied tape and looked at the Tennessee Volunteers, what are some things that are notable to you?
Well, the first thing that you always notice about, Tennessee is just how hard they play. I know they go through their scoring droughts and have some difficulty scoring at times, but it's never dissipated their defensive effort and that way how hard they play. I know with most teams, when you're having success on the offensive end, then it's always easier to have some competitive spirit defensively and compete for loose balls and rebounds, be out in the passing lane and play tough and physical. The hard thing to do is when teams are not having success on the offensive end to continue to play that way and grind it out. So, we're going to, anytime you play Tennessee, you're going to be in a physical battle, a war. And I don't know if our guys are prepared for that. We've been trying to do some things in practice to get prepared for that. But, it's hard for us because we only have 8 bodies. And so we got coaches out there and managers out there. And, I'm just always telling guys, when we get done with a rep or get done with something like, hey, it's not going to be like that against Tennessee. Tennessee's going to hit you. Tennessee's going to fight you, And so I'm always afraid that we're not getting prepared for how intense and physical it's going to be with Tennessee.
Rick, a number of different coaches through the years have had success at Mississippi State in basketball. There is some tradition there. So when you look maybe beyond the season and all the misfortune that has incurred, are you optimistic about being able to sell and build this program?
Very optimistic. When you get involved with jobs, the first thing you look at is like, and I don't think most people look at this, is can you win there? I think so many people get involved with the financial part of it, the recruiting base, media, things like that. But the simple thing to me is like, can you win there? And I think it's been proven that Mississippi State you can win there. Richard Williams did it and Rick Stansbury did, and they did a great job. And so, it's not uncharted waters. I think we can get it done here. The university has put an unbelievable amount of money as far as, providing us with a brand-new practice facility. I think, Mississippi State is one of the few schools in the SEC where it started off because we were so bad in football for a long time that basketball was actually the flagship sport. I think we have a tremendous fan base, and I think we got, fertile recruiting area. So I'm very optimistic that we can get it done here.
Coach, really appreciate it. Enjoyed the visit with you, and best of luck, and thanks so much for the time today.
Oh, thanks for having me on. I apologize for not getting to you at a timely manner.
No, you're all good. Thank you, Coach. Take care.
Bye-bye.
That is Rick Ray.